CSOs present, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the board and management of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, I welcome you all to this important afternoon discussion on the 2024 budget and economic policy of Ghana. Colleagues, the Minister of Finance, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, presented the 2024 budget statement and economic policy of Ghana to Parliament on 15th November 2023 under the theme Pursuing Growth and Development Within Stable Macroeconomic Environment. The fiscal policies presented seek to advance the path towards fiscal consolidation, restore macroeconomic stability, boost growth, expenditure rationalization, structural reforms, and social protection. Friends from the media, according to him, implementation of the growth strategy is to ensure the economy becomes more resilient and put Ghana on the path to prosperity through aggressive private sector participation that will promote job creation, export promotion, economic diversification, as well as competitive import substitution. Ladies and gentlemen, given the importance of agriculture sector and the fact that the country currently needs vibrant investment in the sector to ensure sustainable food production, the PFAG post-budget analysis seeks to scrutinize and highlight emerging issues from the agriculture sector budget, especially investment decisions and how such decisions could impact on agriculture performance in the country. So I will just take you through the agriculture sector and how it looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghana's agriculture sector is an important sector providing employment to about 38.3% of the population, with majority of rural folks engaged in either mainstream production or value chain activities, especially women. The sector is key in sustaining domestic industries, stability of local currency, ensuring food security, and suppressing food inflation. The poor performance in the agriculture sector is perhaps reflected in poor performance of most of the productive sectors of the economy. For instance, the poor performance of the sector in 2021 and 2022 led to almost all the macroeconomic indicators, such as inflation, 54% in December 2022, and this was the highest in the last 22 years. Exchange rate depreciated by 20% in 2023, and high unemployment rate of about 3.8%. In 2022-2021, we have about 70% of poultry farms being scaled down, and majority of them actually left production because of high cost of maize and soya beans. Friends from the media, the agriculture sector activities comprise of three key ministries that are responsible for coordinating activities of farmers and agribusinesses. These include the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, MOFA, Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, MOFET, and Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. The activities of these sectors are further categorized into 5 key areas. We have the crop sector, which contributes about 76% of agriculture contribution to GDP. We have livestock, cocoa, forestry, and fishery subsectors. Key highlights of the 2023 agriculture sector performance. Ladies and gentlemen, the agriculture sector in the first quarter grew by 6.3% compared to growth rate of 4.3% the same period 2022. And the overall agriculture GDP growth increased from 2.9% in 2022 in the first half of the year to 3.2% within the same period in 2023. This growth is said to be driven by the crops and livestock subsector, which recorded both growth rate of 6.8% in 2023 compared with 3.8% and 5.7% respectively within the first half of 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, the positive performance of the sector in 2023, especially without any direct support and investment from government in 2023 validates PFAG 2022 assessment of the Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 1, where over 70% of the respondents in that report indicated that there was no value for the PFG 1.0. Also, the crop source sector leading is a sign that majority of the poor are better off as they dominate in crop production. To put more emphasis on this point, you know, with the PFG 1.0, government was procuring fertilizer and seeds to farmers. It got a point, the fertilizer that were procured were of poor quality. Even the prices compared to the market price, there was no differences. Yet the ministry was always taking a lot of money from Ministry of Finance. So we did an assessment which found that there was no value for amount of money that was spent on the PFG 1.0. So it led to modification of the PFG 1.0 and then came in the PFG 2.0. On the cocoa subsector, there was a decline in growth rate from 1.6% in 2022 to a record low of 0.4%. And then we found that the poor performance could be partly attributed to illegal mining. We actually did some engagement with most of our farmers and realized that majority of cocoa farms were taken for illegal mining, and that has actually affected the performance. And we are frightened that if this issue is not properly looked at and government intensifies its fight against galamsey, in some few years to come, we might not have cocoa to export. Also, we also realized that in 2022, 2023, there was poor investment in cocoa farmers. Free fertilizer and agrochemicals that has been given to cocoa farmers was taken out. And then around the same period, we also experienced swollen shoot viruses, which could also affect the poor performance. So there are multiplicity of factors that attributed to poor performance of the cocoa sector in 2023. Government expenditure on agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, the government expenditure for the agriculture sector comprises of expenditure of the three key ministries that are mentioned above, that are responsible for coordinating the activities of farmers and agribusinesses. The total budget allocation for the three ministries in 2024 budget increased by 74% to 5 billion, average of 5 billion Ghana cedis, compared to 3 billion Ghana cedis in 2022. And this investment goes to Ministry of Food and Agric, Ministry of Fisheries, and Ministry of Lands and Forestry. Competing the budget allocation using these three ministries, the agriculture sector budget allocation has percentage of total government expenditure in 2023. That is the same percentage as 2023 figures. That is 1.95%. So if you take the total government expenditure, we only allocated 1.95% to agriculture. This is far, far, far below the commitments we signed on the Malabo and the Maputo Declaration to devote at least 10% to the agriculture sector, which was expecting to lead to 6% growth. Given the high inflation of about 40.5% on average and over 20% depreciation of the cedi on average in 2023, the nominal value of total budget allocation in real terms has reduced, while allocation to the agriculture sector in real terms has actually declined by 40.5%. What we try to say is that even though if you look at the nominal value of the amount that is allocated to the agriculture sector from 3 billion to 5 billion, you would think that is a big money. Okay, but factoring in the rate of inflation and then depreciation of the cedi, if you take the same amount to go to the market, you will buy less goods than you would have bought in 2022. So that's what we mean by the real value of the amount allocated. Ladies and gentlemen, the failure of government to commit substantial resources to the agriculture sector is worrying, given that this is the sector that can trigger growth of most of the other sectors, especially industry and manufacturing. Also, with the IMF support, PFAG were expecting to see substantial budget allocation in support of capital investment in agriculture in areas such as irrigation development, feeder rows, warehousing, mechanization, which are critical for transforming the agriculture sector. Apart from inadequate allocation, there is no detailed breakdown of this amount that is expected to go to the agriculture sector. And once there's no specific allocation that, okay, this amount is going to either irrigation, mechanization, extension, when it comes to monitoring, it becomes very, very difficult for you to monitor. Execution of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture budget. The analysis of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture spending against budget allocation depicts underspending. This trend has been a common feature of the ministry implementation since 2018 to 2022. So budget performance data for the period 2018-2022 shows that MOFA's budget has been underspent by 27%, 18%, 19%, 10%, and 45% for 2018 to 2022 respectively. The underspending is largely due to failure on the part of Ministry of Finance to disburse funds for project implementation. For instance, if you remember in 2021 and 2022, there were outcry by many farmers and fertilizer importers and seed importers of services that they provided. They imported fertilizer which were distributed under the Planting for Food and Job Phase 1. But when it came to payment, government refused to pay. So all these are factors. Sometimes so the allocation is there. When it comes to the actual disbursement, then it becomes a problem. So based on these figures, certainly it's going to be very difficult for us to achieve zero hunger projected by 2020, and then also our commitment to allocate at least 10% under the Malabo and then Maputo Declaration. So we were expecting to see in the budget areas such as irrigation, access to key inputs like affordable quality fertilizer in seeds, mechanization services, warehousing, feeder rows, extension services, irrigation, storage and warehousing, value addition, and research and development. But looking at the 2024 budget, nothing like short is there. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that for the past 7 years or so, the main agriculture policy in Ghana is planting for food and jobs, where in previously government allocate about 90% of MOFA budget to planting for food and jobs. So we also try to look at what is contained in the budget for the planting for food and jobs. And also, after the resignation of the then Agric Minister, Honorable Afriye Akuto, to become the flag bearer of NPP, there was a new minister, Bryn Acheampong. I know you are aware. So due to poor performance of the Planting for Food and Job Phase 1, based on several reports, including PFAG reports, the new minister decided to modify the PFG and call it PFG 2.0. So what is being implemented is PFG 2.0, which we will be looking at. So with the PFG 2.0, the focus is on private sector, value chain approach, market-driven, and inclusivity. So government will only play a facilitation role in the project implementation. So what it means is that government is not going to directly be involved in distribution of inputs, both seeds and fertilizer, and direct implementation, but create the enabling environment for private sector to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2024 budget, highlighted government efforts to address heavy spending on poultry under the PFG2. And with this, the poultry sector is to see a facelift through the anchor and outgrower system in 5 regions: Asante, Greater Accra, Bono East, and Eastern region. And this is expected to produce 65,000 metric tons of broilers in 2024. Emerging issues that we have identified in the PFG 2.0. The introduction of PFG 2.2 to replace the PFG 1.0 is a step in the right direction, as the PFG 2.0 is expected to put less strain on government due to private sector participation. Notwithstanding, PFAJ were expecting to have seen more committed investment from government, given that agriculture sector is too risky and vulnerable to be left in the hands of the private individuals alone. Also, with a total budget allocation of 3 billion to agriculture and 700 million, that's about 23.2% allocated for implementation of PFJ 2.0. This is far lower than 2017 to 2021 budget, where the PFJ 1.0 budget was over 70% of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture total budget. The Economic Enclave project is covering a few areas, just very few districts in 5 regions. Yet, government allocated 1 billion for that project. And the PFJ, which is covering a national, which is a nationwide, is rather getting only 700 million. This clearly tells how unserious government is with the agriculture sector development. Ladies and gentlemen, this amount, in our view, is inadequate for impactful implementation of the PFJ 2.0. It is also worrying that there is no clear indication of government investment that target farmers under the PFJ 2.0. Ladies and gentlemen, it is frightening to start seeing signs of factors which led to the failure of PFJ 1.0 reflecting in the PFJ 2.0 in the 2024 budget. Friends from the media, the 2024 budget per the operational modalities of the PFJ 2.0, the ministry played no role in providing or even facilitating inputs to farmers, as these are primary role of anchor farmers or aggregators. Secondly, per the design of PFJ 2.0, government cannot forecast the quantity of inputs to be supplied, since it will be demand-driven and based on the number of farmers that are enrolled onto the program. It is therefore shocking and surprising to PFAG to read in the 2024 budget that since the launch of PFJ 2.0, the ministry in 2023 has facilitated the procurement process and distributed 9,827.5 metric tons of seeds, comprising of 5,000 metric tons of maize, 450 metric tons of rice, and 300 metric tons of sorghum, 4,091 metric tons of soya, and 1.3 metric tons of pepper, 1.2 metric tons of tomatoes, and 4 metric tons of onions, in addition to 365,165 metric tons of inorganic fertilizer and 2.5 million liters of pesticide to farmers for the minor planting season under the input credit model. Let me throw more light on this. As I said earlier, after the modification of PFJ 1.0, we were still working to implement the PFJ 2.0, and we are a key beneficiaries of this program. We have engaged the ministry on a number of occasions, and there was no single occasion that was mentioned that the ministry has ever distributed any inputs in 2023. So seeing these figures reflecting in the budget is something that is shocking to us and all the farmers. We place a call to most of the farmers to find out whether this has really happened, and there's no single farmer who confirmed that they received anything from government. So we are thinking that if you are starting a program and we begin to see these figures, it's worrying. Okay, because we are all talking about inadequate funds from government. So if you begin to report on projects, non-existent projects in our view, we think that is a sign of failure of project which is yet to take off. Ladies and gentlemen, the PFAG members constitute majority of smallholder farmers in various districts, and also PFAG led their onion farmers to the ministry for support. So far, there are no reports among these groups of any government investment. We would like the minister to explain when these inputs were supplied, where they were supplied, and details of the farmers who received them. Also, we call for proper explanation to Ghanaians why the ministry is now involved in input distribution against the PFJ 2.0 model of anchor farmers and aggregators distributing inputs to farmers. In addition, The ministry has already estimated number of seeds and fertilizer it will facilitate and provide for the 2024 planting season under PFG 2.0. These revelations do not portray transparency and clarity on the PFG 2.0. We urge the ministry to provide clarity on these issues and provide breakdown of beneficiaries, how they were selected, and which aggregator undertook that tax. We are by this information call on the media and all Ghanaians and all value chain actors to be on alert, as government is possibly going to take us for granted and steal the taxpayer money for their personal benefit. Granting of exemption on the importation of agricultural machineries and equipments and input. The 2024 national budget established that import duties on the importation of agricultural machineries, equipment, and inputs that are not available locally will be waived. These measures will reduce cost of such goods, reduce costs to the farmer, and also reduce cost of production and make the sector more attractive. Ladies and gentlemen, the PFAG is pleased with that move. That government has approved our request to grant exemptions on the importation of agricultural machinery, equipment, and inputs. We work with the economic governance platform, and then we engage the Ministry of Finance on a number of occasions on these issues. So we want to use this opportunity to thank the ministry for actually honoring these recommendations that we give to them. In addition to that, we are now calling on the bodies that matter, especially GRA under the Ministry of Finance, to ensure that there is a speedy process to ensure that this particular policy come to light, to ensure that the cost of these inputs and machineries come down. Implementation of the Economic Enclave Program. Ladies and gentlemen, at scale and speed, 1 billion Ghana cedis has been allocated to Millennium Development Authority to complete the Economic Enclave Program. This funding, according to the budget, will be dedicated to providing critical infrastructure, including irrigation, as well as clearing and developing land for private sector actors in the Economic Enclave Project. To improve local capacity for production of food items that account for about 45% of the value of our annual imports, such as rice, fish, sugar, poultry, among others, the government of Ghana is targeting these products for import substitution by supporting the private sector through partnership with existing and prospective businesses to expand, rehabilitate, and establish manufacturing plants for these crops. In addition, under the Ghana Care Program, an economic enclave project with focus on providing support for the cultivation of up to 110,000 acres of land in Greater Accra, Asante, Central, Savannah, and Oti region. This is laudable in our view. Ladies and gentlemen, on irrigation development, we are particularly disappointed that there was no specific mention of major irrigation intervention to address climate change effects on agriculture in the budget. After the salt cutting for Polgo Multipurpose Dam to be constructed in 2019, no investment has been done in that dam. Meanwhile, last year, there was budget allocation of 200 million to continue with that dam. By the end of the year, no peso was invested in that. In addition, major dams under the One Village, One Dam policy have been abandoned, making them unusable in many communities in the northern part of the country where the intervention was targeted. Ladies and gentlemen, along the Volta Lake, we had expected the government would have taken advantage of the excess water in the Akusumbo Dam to develop a mechanism to store water for irrigation purposes. But this was not also captured in the budget. Friends from the media, whilst we acknowledge the intervention from the Economic Enclave Project to complement the PFG 2.0, we reckon that the Economic Enclave Project is limited to only specific locations and comes with implementation modalities different and separate from the PFG 2.0. We say this because You see, the government itself is now ashamed of failure to put money to support agriculture sector. So if you look at anywhere they talk of economic angle project, then they try to link it to projects under the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, which is not the case. We think that if government actually think agriculture sector is important, it needs investment, then proper budget allocation should be sent to the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, allocation of funds under the restoration phase for flood victims of the VRA spillage. Government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, according to the budget, will allocate additional resources to support the restoration of livelihoods of inhabitants affected by the Acheampong dam spillage. We commend the government for seeking to restore the victims of the Acheampong dam spillage, who are mostly farmers and members of Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, to their economic activities. However, the government need to be specific and clear on the restoration of livelihoods plans for these victims. The provisions to work through the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to allocate additional resources for the restoration is vague and unclear as compared to budgeted amount of 220 million to support the relief phase of the victims. The government should announce a clear-cut policy interventions coupled with actual monetary allocation and framework for disbursement of funds to the affected victims at the restoration phase. Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, our partners from CSOs present, staff and manager of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, considering state of agriculture and food insecurity and high food inflation recorded within the year, the PFAJ and its members were expectant of committed investment to improve food production, reduce food prices, and improve farmers' livelihood. Though the 2024 budget attempts to do so, it fails short of the rapid transformational change we were expecting to see in the agriculture sector that will address the current food insecurity crisis and food inflation the nation is battling with. So whilst we commend the government for a few interventions, we think that our expectations were not met in the budget, and that as the budget is being discussed in Parliament, if there's opportunity for additional resources to support the sector investment, we duly welcome that. On behalf of my colleagues here and the members of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, I want to thank all of you for coming and listening to the budget statement. My colleague will take us through the recent legislation instrument.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe,
and click on the bell for more updates.